Okay, so new year, new us right. But those resolutions, man, they're tough to stick with. What if instead of, just willpower, we we looked at self-improvement like differently, like through ideas?
I like that. Ideas, huh?
Yeah. So that's what we're doing. We're diving into that today. Agnes Callard, she's a philosopher, and she wrote a book, Open Socrates.
Open Socrates, okay.
Yeah, the case for a philosophical life. Don't worry, though, we're not going to be, reading ancient Greek or anything. We're using a New York Times book review. And this review, it's a goldmine. Okay, so Callard, she's saying, becoming better. It's not all about willpower. It's more like intellectual work.
So instead of focusing on habits and that kind of thing, we need to examine our beliefs and values first.
Yeah, like figure out what good even means before you try to pursue it or whatever.
Oh, gee, I see.
But here's the cool part. Callard, she argues that Socrates, like how we think of him, it's been kind of watered down.
Oh, interesting.
We're all like, oh, critical thinking. But she's saying there's so much more, especially his ethics, like life-changing stuff.
Yeah. It's easy to forget he wasn't just some, abstract figure. He cared about how people lived, really lived.
Right. And the way he engaged people, so fascinating. He called himself a gadfly.
A gadfly.
Yeah, and a midwife, too. Can you imagine?
Wow, that's a combo.
Right. So, that friend who pushes your buttons but then helps you come up with amazing new ideas. The review even says, Callard, when she was younger, she tried to be Socrates at an art museum. Badgering strangers with huge life questions didn't go well.
I bet. Sounds like she maybe overdid the gadfly part there. Good reminder that even with tough ideas, you got to be approachable.
For sure. But it also shows, for Socrates and Callard, it's not just intellectual stuff for the sake of it. It's about actually living better.
I see.
And Callard, she talks about these things, she calls them savage commands. Basically, those urges we all feel, like pleasure, avoiding pain, social pressure, like pride or being ashamed, that kind of stuff.
Right. And if we let those run the show, we'd be all over the place.
Totally. I mean, think about it. Have you ever felt pulled in different directions, not sure what you actually want?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Right.
I want to eat healthy, but also those cookies.
Exactly. Or you're on social media and you start comparing yourself, feeling bad. Classic savage command right there.
Ooh, good example, yeah.
And Socrates would be like, hey, that conflict you're feeling, that means you gotta stop and think.
Examine those urges.
Yeah. Are they leading you where you really want to go? Values and all that.
And speaking of values, Callard also talks about time. We don't have forever. Socrates, he was big on that too. He saw philosophy as preparing for death.
I know, that sounds kind of,
It's not about being morbid, though. It's about being clear on how we spend our time while we have it.
Okay, I get it. So it's more don't just get through the next 5 minutes. Think about what matters, big picture.
Exactly. The review mentions Tolstoy, the novelist. Mm-hmm. He had this huge midlife crisis, wrote about it in his confession, had all the success, family, the whole 9 yards, but still felt empty.
Oh, wow.
And that resonates with so many people. That moment when you're like, wait, what am I even doing all this for?
That's deep.
It's kind of like waking up, right? Realizing you can choose what you're aiming for. And it seems like Socrates, Callard, they're both saying, live a more examined life.
Yeah.
Question things. Don't just go through the motions.
Yeah. Become more aware of those savage commands, not just following them blindly, but using our brains to create a better path,
That's going to be hard work.
It is, but Callard, she's very clear about this, that struggle. It's valuable. I really like that about her approach. It's not about, reaching some perfect state. It's about the journey, the questioning, the learning, all of it.
Makes me think of that famous Socrates quote, "The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing." It's kind of humbling, but freeing, too, when you think about it.
Right, admitting, hey, I don't have all the answers, but I'm open to learning, to changing. It's the opposite of just obeying those savage commands.
Absolutely. Being intellectually humble means being willing to be wrong, to change your mind, to keep learning. And that's something we could do everywhere, not just with, philosophy.
So it's a constant dialogue then, with ourselves, with people around us, challenging our own assumptions, inviting others to do the same.
That's where the good stuff happens. Not in being certain, but in that back and forth, that real intellectual exchange, even if it's messy sometimes.
The review mentioned something. It said Callard might be going a little too far when she says our deepest desire is to be treated as an intellectual thing.
Intellectual thing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to make of that phrase at first either.
It's definitely unique. But I think what she's getting at is that need to be really understood.
Yeah.
to connect on an intellectual level. Like someone sees you, hears you, not just the surface stuff, but your thoughts, your ideas, all of it.
Instead of just wanting someone to like your outfit or whatever, you want them to get your ideas, feel truly seen, understood on a deeper level.
Yeah, exactly. And even if that's not true for absolutely everyone, I think most of us crave that kind of connection, to feel intellectually alive, engaged in our own minds, but also in our relationships.
Which brings me to relationships, because we're talking about thinking our way to a better life, but that doesn't mean we got to do it alone, right?
Not at all. Callard actually sees relationships as like essential for this whole intellectual ethical growth thing. She even talks about love as an intellectual pursuit.
Wait, love as intellectual. Okay, now I'm curious.
She thinks a partner, and this could be romantic, friends, mentors too, can help us see our own blind spots. You know how it's hard to be objective when you're too close to something.
Yeah.
A good partner, they offer a fresh perspective, help you see what you might be missing.
That's true. Those friends who aren't afraid to disagree with you, those mentors who push you, so valuable because they make you think bigger.
Exactly. And it gets back to that Socratic dialogue idea. Open exchange, questions. It shows thinking doesn't have to be a solo thing. It can be communal. We learn together.
So disagreements, debates, they're not something to avoid. They're chances to learn from each other.
Yeah. Of course, not every conversation has to be super deep, but approaching relationships with that curiosity, that openness, man, it makes things so much richer.
It also challenges that stereotype,
Right.
that being intellectual means being all detached and aloof.
I was just thinking that. It's like the opposite, right? If you're open to learning from others, you're more engaged with the world, not less.
It really flips the script, doesn't it? Like being philosophical isn't about hiding away with books. It's about being out there, connecting with the world, with people.
It's taking that curious mindset, that openness into everything we do, our relationships, even just daily choices.
So to bring it all back, open Socrates, it's not about, becoming a philosopher or anything. It's more about being aware of how we think, questioning stuff, and just being curious, I guess, approaching life with a sense of wonder.
And a good dose of humility, too. Remember Socrates. Knowing that you don't know everything is a great place to start.
Right. So instead of beating ourselves up for not being perfect, maybe this year we try to be a little more Socratic. What do you think?
I'm all for it. I think being more Socratic means, asking those tough questions, admitting when we're wrong, and just keep searching, for that deeper understanding. It's realizing that struggle, the process itself, that's valuable, even if we never get a perfect answer.
Yeah, progress over perfection, right?
Exactly. And Callard, she doesn't give us easy answers, which I appreciate. Life's messy, right? But she gives us like a framework, a way to approach that mess with more thought, more intention.
Tools for the toolbox, even if we got to figure out how to use them ourselves.
Which is where things get really interesting, because it means applying these ideas, it's going to look different for everyone. What resonates with you from all this? What stands out?
For me, it's those savage commands. It's crazy how easy it is to just be on autopilot, reacting to every urge, every emotion. But Callard's like, hold on, you have a choice. We can actually stop, look at those impulses and ask, are these really taking me where I want to go?
That's a great point. And a lot of times I think when we slow down, pay attention, we'll find those savage commands. They're not really serving us. Maybe they feel good in the moment, but long-term, happiness, fulfillment, not so much.
So a challenge for everyone listening then. Think about a savage command that's been driving your behavior. Could be anything. Mindlessly scrolling, comparing yourself to others, you name it. Now, how would a more Socratic approach change things?
What questions would you ask? What values are underneath it all? And could changing your thinking actually change what you do?
Lots to think about. So we'll leave you with that. The wisdom of Socrates, the insights of Agnes Callard. Keep those minds open and keep asking those questions. We'll see you next time.